That's right, I made you rich, therefore I am the Lord thy God. Bow before me! Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about Father Divine. Now, if you don't know who Father Divine is, I wouldn't expect you to know. He's a lying, blasphemous butthead. But before we get into that, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because these videos actually take a really long time to make, and you'd be doing me the greatest favor if you actually did do those things. But without further ado, let's talk about Father Divine. So in the late 1930s, some dude popped up that was named Father Divine. Now, Father Divine was small, he was always smiling, and he claimed to be God Almighty. Not kidding, he claimed to be God. You know, naturally, a lot of people are confused by this, so they're like, wait, God isn't supposed to be on earth, he's in heaven. But Father Divine was like, no, he's not. God is living inside of me. And, you know, a statement like this can kind of, you know, make people mad. So a lot of people got angry, a lot of people were curious, and a lot of people just straight up believed him. And his and his followers would say, yo, he's actually God. He made me rich. Yo, what? But his followers would call him Father, and they would gas him up all the time. Like, they would say stuff like, he could heal people, and he could do things God can only do, and he can make people rich. Yo, but that's like so funny to think about. Like, imagine someone making you rich, or like giving riches to someone and immediately calling them God. What? You made me rich? I'm gonna worship you because I feel like you're God Almighty. That's right, I made you rich, therefore I am the Lord thy God. Bow before me! But, you know, Father Divine, like any other psycho cultist that has a God complex, thought it was a good idea to implement some rules. So the rules were no marriage, no drinking, what was the other one? Oh, and no bad words. Yeah, that was it. So everyone had to be pure, and if they broke the rules, they had to leave his group. Bro, like, okay, alright, okay, listen. What is wrong with these people choosing, like, it's not even kidding. What is with these people, like, following these people that claim to be God? It literally says in the Bible that there will be many false prophets. It also, bro, like, it's insane. History doesn't learn from their mistakes. At first, it was the John Jones massacre. And I think I've covered a bunch of videos on, like, a different type of, like, cults. I don't know, I could be wrong. Father Divine actually made homes he actually made a home for his followers to chill at, and that home was called Heavens. And it was strict, full of food, and he promised his followers that if they worked hard, they would never be poor again. And one of the biggest things that Father Divine did was he would feed people. He would feed people. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, that doesn't seem, like, big. You gotta think, while he was feeding people, the Great Depression was going on. If you don't know what the Great Depression is, it was like a worldwide economic collapse, and it made people, it made a lot of people unemployed, and it just made them to where they couldn't make any money. So Father Divine feeding these people was like a really big deal, and he would only sell them food for about a penny, which, you know, people loved him for this, because, you know, I would like to eat food and not pass away, so yeah, I feel like that'd be pretty cool. The police and the government did not trust Father Divine. They actually said it was like the opposite. They didn't like him. They thought he was tricking people, and they thought he was, no. You can't claim to be God, because why would you want to do that? There's only one God. Like, come on, I'll get your butt out of your head. Like, ew, stop it. One day, Father Divine was actually taken to court, and he was called a fraud. What's crazy about this is that as his trial was going down, the judge suddenly died. Which was strange. Which I feel like they kind of set that up to just make him look like he was God. His followers then went on to say that, yo, bro, this is proof. This is proof that he's God. You guys are blasphemers. You guys are blasphemers! After the court case, Father Divine, he went trending, like, he went viral, like, he started getting more followers, started making more heavens, the homes I mentioned previously, and he just started getting bigger. Like, imagine, like, Charlie D'Amelio when she was blowing up, but she said she was God. Yeah, pretty much. Bro, I am, like, so sick. You can kind of see it in my eyes. Soon he had more followers, more money, and he became one of like the most religious leaders in all of America. Which is really crazy because he only got like that because he tricked people into thinking that he was God, which is weird. But Father Divine did not just want any small group. Oh, no. He wanted an entire kingdom, which I feel like is very common when a cultist leader has a God complex. But it was crazy when you think about it because he actually bought a lot of stuff to, build his kingdom. Soon this dude had like restaurants, houses. He just had a bunch of land that he could do whatever he wanted with just because he's great, and you gotta think his followers worked in his businesses, like they worked in his restaurants, like they just worked all throughout his businesses, and Father Divine didn't pay them. And if we're being completely honest, he didn't need to. Like, he gave them everything, like food, water. They didn't need to get paid because they gave him everything. Or he gave them everything. And his followers and Father Divine, they all lived in like one big family. Like, no one owned anything. No one did anything because they were at the will of Father Divine. Which is crazy to say out loud. Father Divine then tells his people that, marriage is bad. Don't marry people. Because love and marriage makes you weak. So, married people had to, like, separate, and they had to treat each other like they were siblings, which I feel like is really strange. Like, because, like, just imagine if you got done, like, having intercourse with your wife, and then you're like, hey, sis. But, Father Divine didn't just call himself God because, he has a God complex, so he decided to call himself a plethora of other things. He called himself the Messenger. He called himself the Light of the World. He even called himself Reverend Major Jealous Divine. Not kidding, he actually called himself that! His last name was weird, but apparently it meant that God was jealous and that he watched everything. Which, I think would apply to actual God, but Father Divine is just some cultist with a God complex that, I don't know, got his toys taken when he was a kid, I don't know. Father Divine was now too powerful, and the U.S. government saw Father Divine, and they were like, oh, well, this isn't good. He may be running a cult. Because you got to think, at the time, Father Divine, like, thousands of people are just giving Father Divine stuff. Like, they're giving him money, resources, land. And the government is looking at this, and they're like, well, a psychopathic cultist that has a God complex that is leading a bunch of people into misinformation by calling himself God. We should probably do something about that. And then some newspapers said that Father Divine actually had a hidden army full of thousands of people that were ready to fight for him. Which, by the way, I don't think he did, because Father Divine actually owned, like, a bunch of newspaper stations. Yeah, I feel like he kind of set that up. And people who did not like Father Divine actually started talking trash about him, and they started dissing him in the newspapers. They would say stuff like, or no, not the newspapers, just writing in general. They would, like, defame him, and they would say stuff like, he's not actually God, he's a fake and fraud, and he's stealing from the poor, which is absolutely true, but, Father Divine is a psychopath with a God complex, so, I don't know how that would go down. But apparently Father Divine wasn't scared. He told his followers to ignore their lies, and he also wasn't afraid because he was like, he can't stop me because I'm God. You can't stop God. Father Divine's empire was getting too big. It filled the entire, like, a bunch of New York. And a bunch of church leaders and, a bunch of people were just like, we need to do something about this guy. Father Divine then tells his followers, hey, we're gonna leave New York because people don't like us. Yeah, we're gonna go build a paradise elsewhere, which kind of seems like a good idea when the entirety of the government wants you, gone. In the 1940s, Father Divine left New York, and he went to Philadelphia, and he brought his huge mansions, he brought his followers, and he brought a bunch of stuff so his followers could, I guess. Father Divine lived in a massive mansion, and it was called what was it called? It was called the Palace, and he lived in this place, and he claimed that it was God's home on earth. And you gotta think, to outsiders, Father Divine's his movement looked like a miracle. Like, people were getting like fed, was just living in quote unquote paradise, and they just had to follow Father Divine. Even though Father Divine moved, the US government still watched him because they thought he was stealing so much money, and they thought he was robbing Americans of their freedom, which, I feel like this is the only time the US government has done something right when it has come to a cult leader. But you gotta think, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Some followers actually left the cult of Father Divine because they said stuff like, oh, well, he was too controlling, and he took literally everything away from us. And then, bro, what? And then the people that left Father Divine's, cultist group, he would look at them, then he would look at his followers, and he'd be like, don't worry, I'm God. I will smite them. The ones that left were punished, they were evil, and they're gonna be punished raw. And you gotta think, even with enemies and doubters, Father Divine was still very powerful in Philadelphia, and they thought he would never die. His followers did, but, he's human, not actually God, so I'm pretty sure how all of you guys can know how that went down. But you gotta think, Father Divine also told his followers that he was God and that he would never die. And, his followers, thinking that he actually is God, believed him. And, what would you know? Father Divine actually got weaker as he grew older. Big surprise, he's human. He's not actually God! And then in the 1940s, a guy named Sweet Daddy Grace. Let's let some silence be between us for what I just said. Sweet Daddy Grace. Nope, not kidding. That's what his actual name was. But this dude basically stole Father Divine's flow. Like, he stole his churches, his teachings, and some other stuff that I can't name off the top of my head. Oh, and, most notably, his followers. He stole a bunch of his followers. And then when people would talk about Sweet Daddy Grace in front of Father Divine would just laugh and be like, oh, yeah, that's funny. He can't do anything because he's not actual God. But he was actually tweaking out because he knew he was losing power. And then by the late 1940s, people stopped following Father Divine because they thought he was just not God. They stopped believing that he was God, which rightfully so, he's not. And people just stopped, joining his, cult, of which he has a God complex in. So, yeah. Beautiful. Father Divine's body was slowly falling away. He basically didn't want people calling him weak because, that's what he was. He didn't want people calling him weak, and when his followers would be like, oh, Daddy, no! And then there were whispers of doubt. They started asking questions. They were like, why is he getting sick? Why are fewer people joining? What would happen if Father Divine dies? And you gotta think, without his followers, his ministry was, slowly destroying itself. Because he didn't have any followers, he couldn't run his businesses, and if he couldn't run his businesses, he couldn't make any money, which, is very terrible when your religion didn't, what's the word for it? Religious dictator. That's the word. And by the late 1940s, Father Divine got really sick, and his followers started getting panicky, and they were like, was he really God, or was he just saying all this stuff? Because if so, I just wasted my life for nothing. Father Divine would lie, and he would tell his followers that he was just resting. Meanwhile, bro was slowly, getting smoked in his bed. And he told his followers that, don't worry about it, God could never get sick. By 1950, Father Divine could not move, and his followers were expecting him to pull off some type of miracle and save himself. But, as you would expect, no miracle happened because he's a lying, blasphemous butthead. And then in 1950, Father Divine passed away. The blasphemous, quote-unquote, God that had been walking on earth was not there anymore. And some of his followers refused to believe that he had passed away. Some people were like, oh no, he just moved on to another form. And a lot of people were like, no, he's not dead. He's not dead. Others said he had just gone invisible, and others just cried because they had lost the only daddy figure they had only had in their life. Father Divine never named a successor for his cult, but he did have a wife, and she was called Mother Divine. Mother Divine was like, oh, we need to keep his legacy alive. Without Father Divine in control, everything slowly collapsed. His businesses and his mighty cult empire went down the drain. And yeah, that was the last they'd ever heard of Father Divine. But yeah, that was the video. Sorry if I wasn't being as hyper or as, loud as I would be. I'm actually really sick, and I'm gonna get it just is whatever. But yeah, I feel like that's the video. Thank you. You're awesome. Also, I kind of just want to talk about something real quick. A lot of people want me to continue the Bible series, which, don't get me wrong, I most definitely will. Like, expect it. Like, I promise I will continue it eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not a month from now, but, like, I will continue it. But the reason why I'm slacking so hard is because those videos actually take a really long time to make, and I'm trying to stay consistent on how I post, and I really want to hit 100,000 subscribers before the end of this year, so I'm really trying to, get these content out and continue posting it, because, when I post a Bible video explaining a book of the Bible, it don't really get that much support on it, and I can't really be pumping out like 40-minute videos and not get any support on them, which is whatever. But yeah, I feel like I just want to talk about that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, because these videos actually take a really long time to make, and you'd be doing me a really big favor if you actually did do those things. But yeah, I feel like that's about it. I thank you, I love you, and God bless.